Chernobyl's like a candle compared to Fukushima.
You got it.
Yeah. I mean, workers dying all the time down there that are doing the decontamination. Then they take it and put it in a bag and bring it to an incinerator on another prefecture and toast
and put it up in the atmosphere.
Back
Perfect.
into the environment. Yeah.
Yeah. Really smart. This issue of animals dying in such enormous numbers up and down the West Coast. And I think I have seen one or two speculative comments. Oh, there might be some link to Fukushima, but they don't know what it might be. These are scientists, and they all know. They know.
I was laughing earlier.
They know. And the EPA and Woods Hole, they're measuring constantly. They got like a picket fence set up all along the Pacific, off the coast of Oregon, Washington, California, up into the Gulf of Alaska. And they're measuring all the time. And aircraft are measuring in the air all the time. They know everything.
We bought all that. We got all the equipment there. They're using it. They're just not telling us.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
No, you're 100% correct, and nobody bothers mentioning that. So I'm glad you brought it up, because that's truly the issue, isn't it?
And I ran a map. I think I put it up as a splash, but it looked like a fence. All the stations that they had put in the ocean, they're floating on
There's no doubt
on small buoys or whatever. But absolutely collecting samples.
Since Fukushima, the scientists here in Canada are not allowed to do an interview without permission from Harper's office.
He's a real tyrant, that guy.
Pans and banging on the pans because he didn't understand why they were being choked and stemmed. And that's after Fukushima happened and right after it, and it's still going on today, right? So they don't understand Fukushima, even internally. A lot of people, they just get the memo. And I've talked to these people, and they say, well, I heard it was benign, that it was innocuous, and that, it's been studied heavily, and that they didn't see any harm in it.
Who said this? Just some folks
This is what government employees have repeated to me. Dave came out with that party line, but that was the memo. And they seemed perplexed that I was studying it, and they seemed concerned, too. I mean, these are just little people in the offices around Canada. But every one of them, including Fisheries, RCMP, Coast Guard, that approached me, became concerned, became alarmed. And like you say, you can't have a conversation about it without sounding like an alarmist, without sounding.
People don't want you around. They don't want to hear about that.
No, that's right.
No way.
What you're doing, you're on their front page, your center row, you're plugging it all the time. They can't be liking you very much. No.
I don't know what else to do. It's so frustrating. All I can do is ask you people, all of you, even in Europe, no more eating fish. You don't know where it comes from. Truly, you don't. You got to just rule it out. And you see these
one Atlantic, or don't touch it. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, you see these ads on the television. I've seen a little television, and they show lobsters and crab and fish, beautiful grilled fish. These basically they're chains of restaurants, and they're tied to seafood, and they're just serving up death.
There's the clearing blocks for
unpublished government map. This is what's on the homepage at Rense. Unpublished government map shows massive plume of Fukushima radioactive material just off the west coast of North America. Radiation levels quadrupled in recent months. 400%. Scientist says we are starting to see the penetration of cesium from offshore to the coast itself. That means the beaches. Okay? Here's another one. Catastrophic event could release radioactive fallout over major U.S. metropolitan area. Well, they don't say which one, but it's obviously Seattle. Government issues emergency plan as fire burns near nuclear site. Oh, this is the St. Louis story. I beg your pardon. Report, the world is on the brink of nuclear disaster. If that trash fire hits that underground repository of 55-gallon drums that have been down there 60 years, just buried with topsoil and dirt, goodbye, St. Louis. It's that bad. It is unbelievable to me that a scientist could claim to be a scientist and approach this situation with such avowed ignorance I don't know anything about it. We don't know anything about radiation. We're trying to figure this out. It could be a virus, a bacteria, could be domoic acid from algae blooms, could be global warming. But nobody says the R word. Dana, it's just getting to be kind of laughable. I mean, in a black, horrible way. It's not real, but it is.
Well, they've been saying bananas, potato chips, and water and sunshine for 70 years, and all of a sudden people, every time they say it in an article, they get pounded in the comment section.
True, absolutely.
And so they're losing their confidence, because it's a confidence game, right? They $5,000 suit and dirty underwear, they've got the prestigious jobs. But yet, like you say, they sound ridiculous when they talk, you know?
They do.
And it's not only this, it's just that we are more educated now. The average person is more educated than any ruler, you know, 100 years ago was, and he was running countries. Anybody, in other words, anybody right now has the basic fundamentals of running a country. And so this is a
very good point.
A major stepping stone in the human evolution.
Yeah.
Where anybody that's got some morals and some ethics, a little tiny bit of moral compass, could be elected to great responsibilities.
Right.
And where before it was more about a power structure, now it's about someone filling a job in interesting communities and that. But once again, the animals, and anybody's not really familiar, is we got all the herring are missing. The anchovies are missing. From
the herring are gone. You heard Dana right. They are gone. They're not there.
The shrimp are gone. The krill are gone, which is a basic food. These are all basic foods of the migratory mammals and animals and marine life itself. And of course, massive whale die-offs were all krill eaters, and they're missing. Something we predicted a couple, more than one time on your show, that this was the problem, was they're not reproducing the food of the web itself. So the 5,600 species typically that are indigenous Canadian coastline, there's 4 million species in the ocean altogether, but they're the indigenous 5,600 species. If they were to, say ice was coming along and scrub the coastline, well, there's room there now for 4 million other species just to seed the coastline, because the ocean is the seed itself. A glass of water is 1 billion creatures and eggs and larvae and everything else. Mm-hmm. And so the coastline is not reseeding itself anywhere. And so how can it be doing it in any other Pacific Rim nation? And we always talk, of course, in context of North America, because we're North American. That's a huge area. We're not saying it's small, but it is. All Pacific Rim nations are going to suffer this. China is not very far away. Vietnam is not very far away. The Philippines is not very far away from Japan.
South Korea. Yeah.
And so they're suffering the same fates. Anybody in the Pacific, those rim nations in direct relationships, but it's going to spread to all the other oceans and the water tables, because we're all connected. Now, the animal die-offs, we've seen mass mortalities of walruses, big animals, because they're feeding in those tidal zones. They're eating the clams the same as the otters are, also. And the otters, now all the kelp along the coastline was so disgusting, what was left of it was so rotted, that was one of the things I had predicted. And that's why that was so eerie for me today to see about the otters, because normally the coastline was packed with them, then they were wiped out and they were reintroduced. Mm-hmm. And the spot where they're reintroduced, they're still holding out. I was surprised, but everybody there was saying that they ate everything that was there, which is patently absurd. But the locals, they had complained about the otters, because there's around 16 of them hangs outside of this little Clayoquot community in the middle of nowhere on the west coast of Vancouver Island that I'm talking about, that I several weeks or 2 months back, we have come down the coastline of Canada for the fifth expedition. And I had been in there, and this is what they were saying to me. They were like, "We're pest." And I never said nothing to them. I just let them talk. But you know, I did say, well, that's kind of ridiculous. How could otters eat everything on the entire coastline? I said, you don't suppose that Fukushima might have something to do with it? You know what I'm saying, right? But that's what they
actually believe that.
My face was
they actually believe that.
Yeah, they seem to consider them a pest, but they also, that was a recognizing that there was nothing left there.
Yeah.
And they live in a really paradise, that little particular spot. But the whole coastline is missing all of its species. The birds are missing, the fauna, the flora of all the high tide zone species were missing. These are different species. And then you got All the algae, 600 algae, which is the very foundation of all life, was missing, except for a couple of same algae throughout the whole coastline is all we found. And they were very sparse. And now they're starting to roll it out. It's looking like they're starting to slowly come out with it, because like you've been going through the headlines, putting them at your site. And if you go look through them for, say, 20 minutes, you'll see all those correlations of mass animal die-offs and bird die-offs and whale die-offs. And it's always the same thing where everybody's scratching their head, big melon scratcher. It's not a melon scratcher if you're honest, right? Is it, Jeff?
No, not a chance. It's just so obvious. It's not even open for discussion.
But you can't sell the land in the UK because of Chernobyl, but Chernobyl was nothing. Chernobyl was 1/3 the size, a 30% meltdown. Chernobyl stopped after 10 days.
Yeah.
But Chernobyl's 400 Hiroshima bombs. And so now I think, once again, it's something that you're doing now is you're pushing the health side and these enriched small doses of natural.
The bio superfood, the algae, which you can find on my homepage. Look for the box. Just my name is on it. I take it every day. I have since this thing began. And I'm so grateful that it's available. And
that kind of stuff is what you need.
I have commercials running urging you to take it every day, just 3 capsules a day, little tiny capsules, little green capsules of algae. And it was proven to work at Fukushima, saved tens, hundreds of thousands of lives. No one will ever know for sure. But I've had the doctor on, Dr. Michael Kiriak, who literally created it, found out which algae worked the best with radiation, and gave the best nutrition to the body to build the immune system. It's all there.
We used to eat, on this planet, we used to eat 8,500 plants or so.
Oh, yeah.
We're basically eating 7, and these are GMO with all the potassium.
All the spraying, the
carbon,
pesticides, the herbicides, all the crap.
Right, on top of that. Then it's got the formaldehyde and the glyphosates, and they stop you from uptaking nutrients, and there's toxins and dioxins. And in a lot of countries, they are definitely 100% illegal because the studies down there weren't suppressed. But here in North America, our shelves are full. And so the only way to protect anybody can hope to get an edge is through being really healthy, finding real food and like talking to water, structured water was an experiment that was repeated over and over. You can take muddy water and turn it into structured water, which in structured water is just the way the molecules are lined up. But that's what your body is designed for. Your body is designed for a certain type of water through genetic superior selection. And right now everything has a chemical added to it and gone through a machine which is electrically magnetized and everything else. And so the water changes its structure. But we've seen structured water reverse cancer in documentaries and that were done through major institutions and repeated a number of times. And this is what you drink in your home is like what Jeff is selling on his site and has talked about. And so many headlines you have put on your site, Jeff, of why something is good for you. Like turmeric, 1,600 peer-reviewed academic studies on it. And it's just a spice. But I mean, GMO.
Turmeric is great. Curcumin is even better. It's a refined form of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can eat a truckload of GMO and a spoonful of turmeric or whatever, like, these natural enriched foods full of minerals and macro and micronutrients, dwarf. Like I say, you would have to eat a truckload of GMO. You still couldn't get that same amount out of it that you could get out of a single spoonful or a few drops.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
And they talk about Roundup and glyphosates and all the sprays. And the average head of lettuce is sprayed 13, 14 times before it hits your salad bowl. You want to eat that? You want to feed that to your kids?
That's child abuse, eh? That's what I always say. That
I concur.
To give them GMO, give them a pop.
I mean, there's no excuse for being ignorant. You got to do the research. You're a parent. You have a responsibility to that child or children. It's your child that is on the line here, not the neighbors.
You're going to do it yourself. Do it yourself. But don't do it to the child. Child doesn't know any better. So that the parent is supposed to.
I know. Absolutely. Thank you, Dana, as always.
Thank you, my friend. Yeah.